There are 19 castles that line the wall at its zenith when the Night's Watch had 10,000 men manning the wall. 17 of these were occupied. Today, with the dwindling numbers along the wall, before Jon Snow was appointed as 998th Lord Commander, only 3 were still up and running. The other 16 left abandoned. Before Jon Snow was assassinated, he had put plans in motion to man most of these castles with the help of the wildlings. There is of course the ancient stronghold of Castle Black, the residence of the majority of the Night's Watch and the Lord Commander. The westernmost castle is West Watch by the Bridge, located near the Gorge and the Bridge of Skulls. In a storm of swords, Bowen Marsh leads men of the Night's Watch in defending the region from wildlings in the fight at the Bridge of Skulls. The Shadow Tower is one of the 3 castles along the wall that was still inhabited by men of the Night's Watch at the beginning of the series, commanded by Sir Daenys Mallister and its Maester Mullin. Mance Rayder served at the Shadow Tower before he abandoned the Night's Watch. The Sentinel Stand, long stood abandoned, is now garrisoned by a small group of Night's Watch men. The Castle of Greyguard has stood partially collapsed for 200 years. The Castle of Stone Door is given to Sorin Shieldbreaker to garrison and settle his own people. Jon Snow re-garrisons Icemark under the command of Bedwyck with 20 men from the Night's Watch and 10 of Stannis Baratheon's men. Deep Lake is located along the point of a curve in the wall around the southern shore. It was paid for by Jaehaerys I's queen Alysanne Targaryen. It was built to replace the apparently more expensive to run Night Fort. In the same way as Sable Hall and the Torches, it has recently become manned again by Jon Snow, but we are not sure by whom or the numbers, although it is known it is not many. Snowgate was renamed Queensgate to honour Queen Alysanne Targaryen when she visited the castle on her dragon Silverwing. Jon Snow gives Queensgate to Morna Whitemask. Oakenshield, immediately to the west of Castle Black, is Tormund Giantsbane's new seat. Long Barrow is under the command of Iron Emmett, with Dolorous Edd as his chief steward, and Greengard with Devon Sealskinner's clan. Hoarfrost Hill, Rhymegate, and Woods Watch by the Pool all remain abandoned. East Watch by the Sea is the easternmost castle along the wall, under the command of Cotter Pike, and the Night Fort, said to be the first and therefore oldest castle along the wall, has been rebuilt many times over thousands of years. The Night Fort features in many of Old Nan's stories, and this is where Sam opens the magical gate to gain passage through the wall. When Samwell Tarly opens the Black Gate at the Night Fort, we are shown the value and magic of the words that the Brothers of the Night's Watch speak, although Sam does not recite all of the Night's Watch oath. He says, "I am the sword in the darkness, I am the watcher on the walls, I am the fire that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers. I am the shield that guards the realms of men." He says this because Cold Hands told him as much. Is it possible that this is the original oath, and the rest has been added over time, specifically as an amendment regarding crowns and wives that would have been required in a bid to prevent another Night's King situation? The 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. History tells us that Jon Snow wasn't the first Lord Commander to be betrayed by his men. In fact, he wasn't even the second or the third. Recently, Jeor Mormont was killed by a group of renegade brothers at Craster's Keep. 600 years ago, the commanders at Snowgate and the Night Fort went to war against each other, and when the Lord Commander tried to stop them, they joined forces to murder him. Roderick Flint, Tristan Mudd, Mad Mark Renkenfell, and Robin Hill were all known as terrible Lord Commanders that almost destroyed the Night's Watch through pride and ambition, although it is not clear how they were overthrown. If this is the case, then even if Jon Snow was married in the eyes of the free folk, this vow wasn't part of the original oath that was sworn, and possibly not connected to the magic spells woven into the wall, nor did he break any of the part that Sam spoke when he made his decision to march on Winterfell, which would explain why the others didn't cross, and why the wall didn't dramatically collapse the moment he made the decision. Not that I think that's how it works anyway. The live and die at my post part could have been added as a caveat to the 79 sentinels. The 79 deserters of the Night's Watch that abandoned their posts at the night fort once they were captured. As punishment, holes were cut into the wall, and each of the deserters were placed in their own hole with spears and horns, and then the holes were sealed up while they lived. They had left their posts in life, so in death they continued their watch. In this instance, the words Sam speaks at the night fort are all statements of intent. I am the sword, the watcher, the fire, the light, the horn, and the shield. Cold Hands tells Sam that these words can only be spoken by a sworn brother of the Night's Watch. I think it's significant that Sam chose to take his vows under the Weirwood Heart Tree in the haunted forest with John, since the door in the night fort itself is also made from weirwood. I wonder if a brother that had spoken the words in a sept would have still been able to gain passage. And while I'm on the subject, why does the wall even need a magical gate that only allows passage to a sworn member of the Night's Watch in the first place? We'll come back to that later. Perhaps only sworn brothers of the Watch who take their vows before the old gods are recognised as true members. When the Watch was founded, there were no Faith of the Seven in Westeros, and beyond the wall, the old gods are still the only gods. In fact, if there is some overarching others, Children of the Forest, old gods connection here, this might explain why the others passed over Samwell Tarly, a true sworn brother of the Night's Watch, and why the second time around the other was only interested in Gilly's baby and not Sam. Sir Malador Locke was presumed to be killed by the others during the fight at the Fist, and House Locke is a northern house, so at first I thought it was likely that he'd taken his vows at a Heart Tree too. But upon closer inspection, it seems that it's possible that House Locke is sworn to House Manderley, and the Manderleys follow the Faith of the Seven instead of the old gods, so it's quite possible that he did not. Waymar Royce's house no longer seem to worship the old gods, as they have a Septon present within their household, Septon Lucas. And Waymar, of course, it was a Sir, a knight, so he had clearly made his choice. If someone can find an example of a Night's Watch brother that would have taken his vows beneath a weirwood that has been killed by the others, please let me know, because I haven't been able to find one. Of course, this doesn't explain why Jon Snow was attacked at Hardhome, but that was in the show only. None of that happened in the books, as amazing as it was, and Jon Snow never even managed to get there to rescue Cotter Pike. And then there is of course Benjen, who would have certainly sworn his vows before a Heart Tree. I don't think he is Cold Hands in the texts. I believe the show has merged these two characters, like they have done with others, such as John Connington and Jorah Mormont in the Greyscale case, so Benjen's fate is still unknown. And while we're scrutinising the Night's Watch vows, who the hell are the Sleepers? The giants that the Horn of Joramun is said to wake from the earth might come in pretty handy in the battle for the Dawn, but many accounts claim that sounding this horn will bring down the wall, so it's a fairly risky move. And why the confusion with the Horn of Winter? Destroying the wall and waking sleeping giants from the earth seem to be two very different actions. That is, of course, unless by giants we're talking about earthquakes, which could contribute to bringing down the wall. The breaking of the Arm of Dawn is described in the World of Ice and Fire as giants awoke in the earth, and many people attribute the creation of the Horn of Winter to the Children of the Forest. Again, we have a conflict of interests. It's unclear why the children would help to raise the wall only to then create an item that can destroy it. But to be fair, the children have been known to resort to extreme tactics in the past. But this wouldn't explain why a member of the Night's Watch swears to be the horn that wakes the sleepers. Why would someone sworn to protect the realms of men, with the aid of an ice wall, swear to sound a horn that will bring the wall down with massive earthquakes? Perhaps this line is more mundane than in fact referencing an ancient magical artifact. Perhaps it simply means that, in the event of an attack, the Watchers will sound a horn to alert his brothers who might be napping at the time. The Night's Watch do use horns to alert each other of what might be approaching, although out of all the statements included in the vows, it does seem weird that they would dedicate an entire sentence to a wake-up call. I do believe that the horn Samwell Tarly of Horn Hill now has in his possession after Jon gave it to him, after he found it with the help of Ghost on the Fist of the First Men, is the Horn of Winter. Writers do not generally do things like introduce a horn, refer to it multiple times throughout multiple books, if it's going to turn out to be simply an old horn of no importance. The only known owner of the Horn of Winter, Joramun, was a king beyond the wall that helped Brandon the Breaker obliterate the Night's King's name from memory. There is something about the timeline of the 13th Lord Commander that doesn't fit, however. Each commander serves for life. Osric Stark was Lord Commander for 60 years, and with 12 predecessors, it's possible that the 13th Lord Commander, the Night's King, lived up to 300 years after the Long Night. Even if the 12 commanders before him all had bizarrely short lives, a minimum of a century, I would say. He is said to have given his soul to a corpse queen, with skin as white as the moon and eyes like blue stars, which sounds very much like a female other. And yet they lived in the Night Fort on the south side of the wall for 13 years. And yet still, the others were said to have all gone far north at the end of the Long Night, banished by the last hero, and the Night's Watch was formed and the wall erected. It is further claimed that after his defeat, it was discovered that the Night's King had been making sacrifices to the others. Perhaps he did this through the secret passage at the Night Fort, that when entry is granted to a sworn brother of the Night's Watch, the magic is negated. Perhaps the 13th Lord Commander created it so he could bring his bride south of the wall. And this is why we've seen it used, and it could be how the others are going to get through, if someone was to allow them passage. So either the others were driven back, never to be seen again until recently, or they were wandering around the haunted forest beyond the wall for potentially up to 300 years after it was said that they had not been seen. And neither of these really adds up, if you take into account the story of the Night's King. But what if the timeline of the Night's King was actually much closer to the close of the Long Night than we realise, or even coincided? The last hero had 12 companions, all of whom died, making him the 13th. I know we shouldn't really use this show as evidence for the text, but there was one scene that could connect all of this if you do a quick head count of the figures that accompany the Night King in this reveal. Was the Night's King the last hero? And was the Long Night ended through a marriage pact, sealed in blood, which was hinted when Ygritte said the wall was made from blood? Old Nan claims that the Night's King could have been a Stark, perhaps the original Stark, Brandon the Builder, who built the wall and created the Order of the Night's Watch in the first place, then defeated by his own brother, the Stark in Winterfell, the King of the North, who overthrew the 13th Lord Commander along with Joramun. If our Bran does indeed end up going back to build the wall, then Cold Hand's description of himself as your monster to Bran could be more a true telling than a reassurance of loyalty.